So for that small percent that doesn't already know, yes, Apple made a console, or at least co-made it, with Bandai, a company that is not famous. I'm sorry, Bandai, please don't sue me.
This is not okay. This needs to stop.
So before we talk about the Pippin itself, let's first talk about what led up to the Pippin even existing. So after Steve Jobs' own board fired him, Apple was experimenting with all sorts of new products, like the Newton and the PowerBook. Yeah, there was a lot of wacky things that were made by Apple in the early 90s. And one day, the CEO of Apple was like, hey, let's try out the console market. And for some very odd reason, Apple teamed up with a company that is nothing, no offense. And yeah, that still puzzles me, because you'd think that a company like Apple would team up with Sega, you know, sort of like how Sony teamed up with Nintendo at first. Bottom line, Apple should have teamed up with someone that was a little bit more experienced, and especially because of Apple's size, they would have had the possibility of doing that, but they never did, because why not? But yeah, they teamed up with Bandai, and Bandai had this whole idea for a video game console that ran on Mac OS, but it was going to be more than that. What Apple and Bandai wanted was a computer, basically, that you could hook up to your television and have multiple media outlets, and you'd have to control these with a video game style controller, and there was no other idea like it ever, even till this day. And hopefully no one in the future will make this mistake of only focusing mostly on media and not on the games themselves. So they hollered at Apple, yeah, I just said that, and Apple was like, alright, let's do this. Apple was mostly responsible for the logic board design, and Bandai was doing the casing and the packaging. And in December of 1994, Pippin was announced to Tokyo. 2 years later, the Pippin was released, even though it was supposed to be released in 1995. So one very unique thing about the Pippin is that it had its own internet. Of course, you'd have to connect with a modem, and ever since the beginning of its life, the Pippin flopped. And only a year later, Steve Jobs came back to Apple and killed the Pippin. I still find it funny that the board was like, alright Steve, fuck you, you made this company, but we're still gonna fire you. And then like, not even 10 years later, Apple's like, Steve, can we have you back, please? Can you fire the CEO? I mean, it's just the biggest wave of odd irony. So why exactly did the Pippin fail in the first place? Well, first off, its price was $600, which compared to the PS1's $299 and Sega Saturn's $399, it was the highest. Also the internet, and I know that internet back in the day was pretty expensive, but the internet feature costed $25 per month, which when you think about it, minuses the internet feature for some people that don't want to pay, so it's basically just a console. The reason though that this internet idea didn't take off is because people didn't really see a purpose at that time. The internet was just way too young, and similar to VR and how it's in its infancy, you don't see everyone with a Gear VR or with a Vive or Oculus Rift. Yeah, they're being sold, but you're not gonna go later with your friends and play. I swear I'm gonna get one comment that's like, well, I'm gonna go later and play with my friends on the VR. Now, Bandai predicted that around 300,000 systems would be sold in the US, 200,000 would be sold in Japan, and that never happened. You probably wouldn't believe this, but the Pippin only sold 42,000, which is less than even the Ouya. And the Ouya, you know, it's like an Android phone just without the phone and the display, and you hook it to your TV. Also, it clearly didn't have all of the good games that you would want, so there's also that. But other than that, after Steve killed the Pippin, Bandai still continued to support the Pippin until December 31st of 2002. Unfortunately, this proves even though if you have a really big company supporting you, you can still fail. It's pretty odd that Apple's name was on this, and it still failed. The reason being is that when people look at Apple, they don't see this. I guess you could say it's similar to if Disney entered the smartphone business. It would be pretty hard to win customers even though, you know, it's Disney and Disney's pretty big. And I actually feel like history is repeating itself with the Apple Watch. One thing that I've noticed with the iPod, the iPad, and the iPhone is that even though these products were not the first of their kind, they were the first to do it the right way. Yeah, this is coming from someone that's a little bit more on the Samsung side. When they happened big. They happened with a lot of features. And that's something that a company like Samsung has succeeded at. They've added cool features in the past to their smartphones, and people liked that. And that's what Sega did, and Sega is way smaller than Apple, and they still did way better with consoles. Just like how Sega proved that you don't have to be Nintendo to make video games, Samsung and Android in total prove that you don't have to be Apple to make smartphones. Please don't turn the comments into a smartphone war. So anyways, back to Apple. When they made the iPod, it held so many songs. Not just that, but it was just a simple device to use. It was at a pretty decent and affordable price, and yeah, it was just a friendly interface. There were already so many smartwatches, and the Apple Watch was pretty high priced, and that really just turned off customers. And there may be some people right now watching this video that have an Apple Watch. Please don't turn the comments into a smart watch war. But not everyone does. When it comes to buying a product, usually people are gonna buy one that they trust. That's why Amazon's tablet and smartphone aren't really going anywhere. And with there already being 4 consoles to choose from, having a 5th one just wouldn't work. Microsoft was in the right place at the right time at the right moment. In the biggest wave of irony, Microsoft, you know, as we all know, also had the idea of making their consoles connect to the internet, hint hint, and they had a better reason for why they wanted to use the internet. But at the end of the day, it doesn't go down to how big of a company you are, it goes down to how good your idea is, and if people actually care. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's Hendersin. They acting like I changed or some shit. Still Hendersin, never changed.